Well, I will call the May 12th, 2025 Traffic Advisory Commission meeting to order. Jason? Roll call now. Jason?
Yes, present.
Kevin?
Present.
Eric?
Present.
Susan?
Present.
Clark? Here. Chris? Carrie? On her way, we think. I made a mistake. Aaron sent out the minutes back in April for the March meeting. Did everyone have a chance to look at them? If not, we'll look at them. And we'll look at both March and May and approve those in June if that's all right, because I forgot to look at them. Anyone else? Is that okay with everybody? Is that all right? We will look at those.
Kid in my class has got a diagnosis. It's not good for my kid. That's all.
I'm gonna sit here.
Foot and mouth.
I do not, you know.
Well, it's sort of your spot.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't need to be there all the time.
I wasn't talking about what you were saying.
No. Good evening.
So-
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor.
Sorry to be tardy.
That's all right. We just decided to review the minutes in June because Aaron was very efficient, sent them out in April, and I forgot. So I didn't look them over.
Erin is usually ahead of all the
She
rest
is ahead of
us,
the game.
so-
So we will look at March and May at our June meeting.
Okay.
4 is our goals for our commission goals for 25-26. These have been slightly tweaked. But number 1 is to use safety as our guiding principle, propose recommendations that are unbiased, transparent, and administered fairly. Number 2 is to be a valuable partner to the SS4A task force. Number 3 is continue educational programs to, hey, Carrie, here. Oh, Rob, we're waiting on what Rob and Rob's
Chair, Chair.
Here's one.
Continue educational programs to introduce complete streets concepts to residents, employers, and city employees. Number 4, work towards developing Webster Grove's crosswalk guidelines to make our streets safer for pedestrians and assist the city with prioritizing improvements along with the design and budget process. And number 5, improve, clarifies, and publicize the communication process between citizens and traffic advisory commission. This is the time in our agenda where we invite visitors to speak on an issue. As I said before, we don't typically have a back and forth, but we listen to you and then we will review what you're talking about. So if you just say your name and your address, and we have about 3 minutes.
Kim Alessi, I am a resident of 614 Grant Court. We're a cul-de-sac right off of Grant Road. And we have, there's 5 homes there, 9 adults, 6 children. 2 of them are currently at Clark School, and my 2 will be going there in the future. And 4 of the 5 houses have dogs. So we are constantly trying to go on walks. Our dilemma is that we don't have a sidewalk, and the only way for us to cross the street is to hurry and run across as fast as we can to dodge the cars. There's a blind spot too, and it's covered with some bushes and trees. So once we cross, then we have to get up the big curb to safely cross the street. But it is terrifying. I have 2 little kids, I have a dog, I'm with a stroller. I don't let my girls cross the street without them being in a stroller because it's that scary. You don't know when the cars are coming. And then once we get down the street, in order to cross back, we have to kind of go towards the north end of this, north end, east side of the street. And then we have to cross, and then we have to take the jogger on a bunch of grass to get back into our subdivision. So, like I said, not easy, but we're constantly walking. I want my girls to be able to walk to school, and not have to, run across and be scared of that. But there's been multiple times, even no matter, how many times I looked. So we're trying to see if we can get a sidewalk put in on the west side of our, west side of Grant, the north side of our subdivision, kind of hard to, and then possibly a crosswalk or stop signs at there's a Webster Forest entrance. I feel like that would be the best.
Down below. Yeah.
So
No,
seniors
go south a little bit. Go south. Yep.
So there's, yeah, our little cul-de-sac. And you can see there's a bunch of trees and then there's a curb. If you zoom out a little bit, that we're fighting that,
So there's a sidewalk on the east side of it.
Correct,
Is it? Okay,
yes.
so your issue is getting to that
getting to that,
sidewalk on
and
the
it's
east side.
like,
Yeah.
so. It's, it just takes a second for that car to come around that corner. Like I said, there's 6 kids in that cul-de-sac. And there'll be a total of 4 going to Clark. So, and we can actually get to Clark's school through a cut through Webster Forest. And that's what we would ultimately like to do. Just find a way to get a sidewalk in, and like I said, a crosswalk or a stop sign. I know you're kind of battling that, and then people do speed around that corner too. So anything we can do for the safety of our kids and, and the adults living there too,
I'm not even sure if you have enough right of way to get a sidewalk in on the west side.
So we do, there is a bunch of, I don't know if you can tell, there's some trees, some big pine trees. There is enough room and there's a light post, but if you go, there is enough room. And I believe, one of the residents there, he had called me, he said when they were planning that subdivision, they had made enough room right away for possibly adding a sidewalk in. It's like, so if they pulled the old plans, he's like, they're there. But there should be enough room to add a sidewalk.
Well, thanks, Kim. We will put this on our agenda for next month.
Thank
for us to
you.
Talk about.
Thank
I
you.
looked at this today and I agree there's some issue and I think we can talk about some possible
I
solutions.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And as I said earlier, you do not have to stick around unless you're really fascinated. Want to talk about parking space in front of McDonald's? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for taking
care.
time out of your day.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, if everyone could sort of take a look at that, maybe drive by and we can add this into our agenda for next month.
I feel like that road was redone like in the last 10 years or so, or some through there, but I remember that, but anyways. I've seen it, that curve is impossible, I can't imagine with the double stroller.
That's really tough.
Does this commission have the sidewalk policy?
No.
We should share that with them then, because before any discussion of sidewalk.
Yeah.
Since we haven't established a
Yeah.
sidewalk policy.
So when she originally sent that correspondence with me, it was about a request for a possible crosswalk. So that's why I shared it with EDC, so.
My guess would be a sidewalk would be extremely expensive.
Mhm.
So a crosswalk would be the first.
A north-south sidewalk, well, on that picture, an up and down sidewalk, or in their little area.
They have a sidewalk on east
Well, because
side.
there's already a sidewalk on the east side, so to install a sidewalk on all or a part of Grant, I mean, it's a long road. And I am worried about the right of way there. I mean, I'm
Well,
relatively.
and let's just talk about our sidewalk
Yeah,
policy.
it-
It would require that the people on Grant actually request the sidewalk, not an adjacent
Oh,
street.
well, yeah, so we don't even know, but I'm even, I mean, I've ridden down that road. I used to live right. I know, I'm very familiar with it. I don't know that there's room.
I don't, it's still unclear to me where she's talking about
Yeah.
adding a sidewalk.
No, I'll show you.
Right there where the mouse pointer is. up
Yeah.
there.
Oh, sorry.
It's a pretty good.
Well, how's that?
So there's a sidewalk on this side.
Because right now they have to cross that road. She comes out of her neighborhood and has to cross.
Right, so they have to
They
raise
have
the
to
cross
cross there.
So, and
here and there's a regular curb. There's not a sidewalk.
because there's a crosswalk
Oh,
up at Big
I
Bend,
see.
they would have to walk up to Big Bend.
So what she said, if you scroll down a little bit. Eric, the other way. What they do is they'll come over here. And then feel it's safe to cross over here and then have to walk down the grass over here with their stroller.
Oh, that's what.
So she was
That's what, okay.
saying either a crosswalk or a sidewalk over here, but I think what you're saying is this would be a big production.
Oh, yeah.
Doing something with that intersection might be a possibility.
Can you put the guy down right at her, the little dude, the yellow guy? Yeah,
Street
if you grab that yellow guy on the right,
I can't think of the.
the yellow guy, if you grab him and place him right there on the street.
Yeah, I don't think you can just paint in a crosswalk either.
Well, I think this is on a hill, I think this is an elevation. So
And a curve, yeah.
So-
I walked the street.
Hey, I know.
a crosswalk is gonna have visibility, yeah, see,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for clarifying. I didn't
So guys, I think we need to add this as an agenda item next month. I know we have a pretty full
Yeah.
agenda tonight. So
Everyone should go.
So, may I make a suggestion before we put this on an agenda item? I think we probably need some data from. Well, I guess you guys should decide whether you want to get data from staff or not. Cause this clearly,
And the data you would recommend would be the sidewalk policy.
But I think that's what we
I don't
need to
know
discuss.
necessarily, yeah.
I'm just saying, this really wasn't on our agenda to discuss tonight, and I know,
Can I make a request?
yes.
Do we all scooch over this way, let the mayor at the table?
Oh, I kind of like it back here. I understand why Erin stays where she is.
And I'm not on the screen.
Mayor, you guys scoot
I'm coming.
I just want to say for the record, I'm not sure that this is something we can decide. I mean, I don't, the sidewalk policy, I'm assuming we had one on our street and it was. A bunch of people in the street had to,
So
Right,
Carrie, I
petition
don't
and-
think we can decide, but I think we can discuss it. As opposed to right now, because we have a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
other stuff to
Okay.
discuss.
Can I ask that the sidewalk policy is distributed to us?
Amen.
Yes.
Okay,
It's actually right on the city
Oh,
website,
it is.
so if you just go to the city website and
Okay.
Google or in the search, do sidewalk policy.
So for next meeting, everyone should do some homework, read the sidewalk policy and then discuss this issue.
That's-
So am I distributing this or not distributing this?
please do.
You
that
got
would be
that,
helpful.
great.
I don't have any idea what it is.
Effective, some.
We're outside of my purview.
One of the things is probably this is related to the sidewalk policy because we believe that it cannot be solved in any other way. So crosswalk, I agree with Carrie's comment. It's just not horizontally, it's not the right spot for it.
Because of the, well, then let's talk next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send
Yeah, I
it
mean,
to
I think
everybody.
it's gonna be something for you guys to
Okay.
decide
Got it.
personally,
You're gonna
but
send it?
we can talk
All
about it
right,
first.
that's good. Let's work.
Even talking about it and figuring out why a crosswalk isn't advisable there will be educational for our committee.
Okay,
Yes.
yes.
So for a crosswalk, we would still need to develop at least a set of ramps on both sides, cut the
Yeah.
curb and provide the crosswalk, but
Right.
that's within what the city can do and.
And if you were gonna do that, you might consider putting a crosswalk a sidewalk about this big. On
Hey,
one
hey, guys.
side, so that they have a place to gather before they.
We'll be here till midnight.
I know.
We can, I'm gonna move on to the next item.
You got somebody behind? Think
Do
public
you
comment?
have a public comment? We're just moving on to our next,
I do. Is this the time?
it was almost past.
Really got here. I am a lover of Webster Groves and my family has lived here 7 years on South Elm Avenue between Lockwood
I'm
and Big
sorry,
Bend
could we have your name?
and Lawrence.
And address.
Hold on, I gotta get the clock on. This is making it challenging. All right, you have 3 minutes, man.
Okay.
Okay,
I
I'm
don't-
gonna start.
He does.
Anyway, so
What's your name
my name is Patty Portis.
and where do you live, ma'am?
I live in De Pere.
What's your,
And our family has owned a home on South Elm for 70 years. And we've watched a lot of changes and none have been more disturbing than when the temporary stoplight went in at Swan and Elm. And I'm very passionate about this, so it's like everything else coming at me. What, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why nothing is done to restore the safety, the ambiance, the integrity of that neighborhood. And the side streets that now get jammed because people can't park in front of their home. I bought some 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs that were yellow. 2 were stolen. Those aren't people from Webster. So I want you to please explain why nothing has been done. I've got correspondence. I mean, I've been writing and commenting since 2000.
You said Elm and Swan?
The stoplight. It was put in temporarily while 40 was being renovated and redone. And then Mayor Welsh decided to make it permanent against the wishes of those most affected. And it causes speeding. We have congestion. There's a traffic problem. We have become the inner belt that never was completed. So people go 40, 45, It's posted 25. The police do not enforce the speed limit. The no truck ordinance is not followed. Semis go through. It's getting worse and worse on trucks. It's just really inexcusable. And especially when we talk in Webster about calming methods, wanting kids to walk to school. And it's always, I feel like, an asterisk on the side, except for South Elm Avenue, because we're not included in all the things that are done in the community to help with that. So, you know, you can hardly even sleep at night with windows open because of the rumbling trucks, the rattling, whatever, the mufflers that need to be repaired that goes zooming by. And nobody does anything, nothing at all. So many, I mean, I've got all these suggestions, not just me. And then there was a survey done or the people petitioned. 250 people signed this within 4 or 5 days. And it was almost like ridiculed that it wasn't done the right way. And it you know, it wasn't a legit kind of petition. And yet when I've talked to police officers over the years, they've said, you got to, you know, power in numbers, and you got to get people together, you know, do some kind of a petition, and that can make a difference. And it's simply not. And I can't figure it out if it's because county council is saying to Webster, we need this traffic flow, so please don't try to solve the problem. Or if people can't figure it out, then we need leaders that can.
Right, I hate to cut you off. I do want to let you know that this is one of our top priorities. We have a large grant from the Safe Streets for All from the federal government. This is one of the 6 demonstration projects that we're going to be really,
So it will be
Working.
included in that.
it is, yeah,
Okay, because,
yeah. So, and unfortunately, this isn't really, the public comments isn't a time for a back and forth.
okay,
But I did want to just let you know that it is on our radar.
okay.
For certain, and it is, and one of our members, Eric, is our liaison to the SS4A task force from our commission. So so that is,
Ma'am, did you say you live in the Perry?
I do.
So do you live at Elm?
she
My
has a
family
house.
has owned 161 South Elm for 70 years, and then my parents were still in it. And then my daughter actually just moved in. A lot of it was because of the traffic. So my heart is, as you
Yeah.
can tell.
No, I think we're all on board with you.
Okay,
You
well,
know,
that's
so
really, really
we're a
nice to
commission.
hear.
That makes recommendations. We don't make decisions. We make recommendations to the city council. So that's what the traffic advisory commission is. So this is totally on our radar. You can go
Okay.
through all of our minutes, and it's on the SS4A.
So what kind of
demonstration.
timeline is it?
Do you know what? How about if you and I'm Laura Arnold. I'm the mayor now,
Hi, Laura.
Jared's successor. Why don't we step outside and I can explain all that to you?
Okay, I'd love
And
to
they
hear
can
it.
continue with their
Thank you so
agenda.
much.
Thank you. All right. Speaking of SS4A, Eric, do you have any updates for us?
Yeah, so I might be butchering this a little bit. I was attending remotely last meeting and there were some tech issues. So I was having trouble hearing everything, but the gist of it is, one thing, they're going away from monthly meetings. I think the frequency was too much. Were you there, Eric, at the last meeting?
I was not.
Okay. And then the biggest thing is that I think they have some relatively serious concerns about the continuation of federal funding. They were originally planning on submitting in 26. And keep in mind, this is a planning and demonstration grant. So the idea was they were gonna submit they were gonna have the safety action plan ready to submit in 26. And then hopefully they were gonna get the implementation grant, I believe, in the 26 funding side. So because they're concerned about funding, they're moving that forward. And that I missed a lot of the details on there, but essentially they're moving it forward. They can apply. I'm reading an email where they say city leadership has made the decision to apply for an implementation grant in the 25 funding round, 1 year ahead of the original timeline. They They say that they're doing this because the safety action plan that they're creating is not complete. They are using an existing safety action plan, the East-West Gateway Plan, which they have a link to. I do not have, I have not read, but they're gonna use that and fly with that. I believe the thought is that grant dollars that are available in this funding round may not be available in the next fund.
That means we're spending, instead of spending. We were gonna spend this test money and now we won't spend the test money because we have a plan that's good enough and skipping.
And I had the same concerns and I was having such a hard time with the I don't have an answer.
I'm not saying that the original plan was bad.
Well, the
It
original
seems like
plan hasn't
they
been
got
created yet.
spent.
It's neither good nor bad because it hasn't been created.
No, not the SS4 plan, but the East-West Gateway.
Yeah.
It has been created.
Yes.
Right, so it's almost like, were we only creating this other one because there was money to do it?
Are we not doing demonstration projects?
Yeah, that,
No, it's the skipping to the implementation of them.
That's what I mean, but so the funding we receive now is for planning and
I'm
demonstration
not really
projects.
clear, and I don't know if,
So they're not doing so where's that money going?
No, the development of a plan is being skipped because East-West Gateway already had one.
That's
So
what makes.
implement-
no.
It doesn't make
I had some
sense.
questions that
Okay,
because of the tech, I was not in a position to really get answered. When my intention was to make a phone call on this. I have some detailed questions of my own that I'm curious about. And also, I have some questions about the reasons they don't think funding will be available. And if there's things that could be removed from the plan that could result in funding still being available.
but
I think that's a
my
good
question
choice.
is the developing the implementation plan funding available and do we have it? If so, we should be developing that implementation plan based on that.
Why don't we
And
do
if we don't
this?
get the funding,
Maybe if you guys email me some detailed questions, I will write an email and I wanted to have a conversation too, because some of my questions I wanted to have
So,
a conversation.
My understanding is they're two separate grants. You have the
demonstration,
demonstration grant and then you have the implementation grant.
which we don't have yet.
Yes, so I don't know that one affects the other.
But dollars have been given, I mean, people have been hired based on the
Yeah.
one grant, and I don't know the answer, so.
Yeah, it's a year by year, right?
Yeah,
So
I
I don't,
believe so.
and I think this was a 3-year, the implementation.
Yeah, I think the bigger issue too is that my understanding of what, just in my professional world, what I've heard is some of this grant money, it is year by year, and just because you have a contract for 3 years, doesn't mean you're guaranteed to keep getting it. I think that is probably part of the concern going on here.
Well, we can ask Sanan, I think he was looking into the environmental studies for the demonstration. Has that come to a stop?
No, the planning and demonstration grant activities are still.
So that
taking
is still being enacted, it's just. Sorry. okay.
True.
I should have asked you
that.
that, you do a better job.
No, not at all. But little information I have about it is that both the environmental review as well as the safety action plan works are still ongoing. And so, but then there was a parallel effort to that. That was going to be the implementation grant application. I don't know if it's still going because the East-West Gateway plan that was on hand to support that didn't support the projects that we were proposing for the application.
Right.
Because we were not proposing really the planning and demonstration grant projects for an implementation grant. And so there are some questions about why not? And so the planning and demonstration grant projects, if we like them as a result, can we just keep them as part of an implementation grant to continue on? But that's not happening so far. And whatever else we had, these came from our existing capital improvement program and the projects that we already planned for our community. What we received as feedback on that was that they did not align with the East-West Gateways plan. So you can still apply, it's not gonna have a good chance, so why waste the efforts? Time and effort.
So here's what I think would be good. I think the SS4A is it really intersects with a lot of stuff we do here, so it's a particular interest on us. I know I have some questions, other folks have some questions. We should all put those on a sheet, come up with a detailed document. And then maybe I'll go in, but maybe multiple people want to go in or ask to be on a conference call maybe we can get a private briefing, and maybe they'd be willing to do that if they make the time. And they can give us a private kind of briefing on exactly what's
Status.
going on,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that'd be good.
Or you could present that as questions at the next meeting to address.
sure, yeah, that's it.
So, but what you were saying was, there's an east-west plan. We wish to have a demonstration plan, not yet done.
Correct.
They overlap about like this.
Yes, I believe they will eventually. Yeah.
Well, they would work to make them overlap 100%. As stands, they
I
only
don't think
overlap
it's a
some.
plan, it's a grant, East West Gateway. Like, they don't plan for everybody. They're the planning organization, but they disseminate the funding is basically what they do. So they get their own set of grant funds that they can release. And I think that's what, if I'm understanding correctly, we were gonna apply for that separate pot that comes through them.
And that will go away.
But I'm guessing, and I don't know anything about this, but I've always wondered, our demonstration projects to me didn't make a lot of sense. I don't know where they came from. Those of us here on this committee I don't know where they came from. But they are like, we're here and they're here in the process of what you would implement. And so my guess is that the East West Gateway is like, why would we give you funding to implement this when the rest of your city and the rest of the metro area is like here? And you're talking about like California level pedestrian, demonstrating. I don't mean to misspeak, but I think that was my
My
impression.
interpretation was that right now there is a state of a lot of questions. And that was my feeling
Inside there.
inside there. And I think this is good that, last meeting, we kind of talked about how we were gonna kind of stay in our separate lanes. And I think that's proven to be the correct decision for us. So I think that's a good thing. So we'll keep an eye on it. I am gonna request, maybe we can get on a call and get some info, but I think we keep plodding along with our thing and let them do their thing, and you know what? I think that's a good thing.
Hopefully someday.
But, and I'm sure that they're up against the timeline of their new budget. Because the money's budgeted now.
Yes,
Doesn't mean in the next year it's gonna be budgeted, so just like.
Well, then-
Try and get your
there's
expenses
a lot
in,
of,
so that's why
they've
they're,
hired people, I mean, they've
Yeah,
got salaries
yeah.
associated with it.
so they've gotta fast forward all that to get their expenses.
So they're trying to do the
Yeah.
best they can with what they think is coming.
Yeah, cause
They don't
you,
know what's coming, so
yeah,
it's even harder.
if there's anything,
You're not even trying to hit a moving.
I
target. You
think
don't-
you're the idea of.
So
keeping
are-
it separate.
is our action, do we send you questions or are you gonna try to set up a?
Send me your questions, but what I'm gonna do is I will try and set up a briefing. We'll see if anything do a Teams or Zoom.
Yeah.
But if barring that, I will bring the questions to the next SS4A meeting. Which it won't be, I think they're going by every other month now, I think. Is that right? Every other month?
Yeah.
I think maybe just setting up a meeting for an update,
Yes,
and then at the end of that, if we have questions, we could.
that's it.
One quick question, is it led by one of the hires here
Yes.
in the city? Could we invite them? We have a lot on our agendas, but we could invite them potentially to our meeting and they could,
If they wish to attend.
if,
yeah.
they could give us a quick update. So that way I guess it would still be another meeting on their agenda.
Some of y'all know these things, but I hardly even understand who the players are. Much less what they're trying to
That's
do.
my
I
point,
can't ask
too.
any questions because I'm like,
So Carrie, maybe that makes sense, if they're meeting every other month, that this spot that we have on our agenda is for one of them to come and give us an update, a status update.
If
and a
they don't
Q&A.
mind, I mean, if they're staff of the city as it is.
Maybe maybe they could attend virtually or
Yeah.
whatever, that might be good too. Yeah, let me see about that. And I'll keep you guys in on that communication.
June 16th.
Is our next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, old business. First piece on our agenda is we requested an additional $2,500 for our budget for next year to continue our education. And that was approved. Or it's I don't know if they fully approved the budget, but they recommended that go in the budget. So that's good news for us. We were just talking about this S4A, and there's a little bit of confusion on our commission of sort of where it is and what it might be up against. So we're thinking of inviting one of the staff members to our next meeting, June 16th, to give us an update. Or you could, or somebody could.
Yeah, why don't we figure out who is best to do that? Because I think my understanding is we're at sort of a pause because of the environmental impact studies that have to be done. Those are federally required, and so we had to go out for bid for those. Am I repeating what you've already said?
I thought it was a concern over funding sources. Because they were concerned about the future availability of the funding, so they were pushing forward.
Well, so we pushed forward with applying for the implementation grant.
Through, yeah, using the East-West Gateway, the existing safety
Yes,
action
because
plan
we're
for
not
East-West
finished.
Gateway, because
Yeah.
we don't have one.
Yes,
But they did that because they were concerned that if they waited until 2026,
correct,
the implementation funds might not be here.
correct.
Okay.
And there's, sorry to interrupt, the understanding is that there's no penalty if we don't get it this time to go back if it still exists.
So we are still moving forward,
Correct.
chasing the original 26. So all the money that was the original study grant, or the original grant money is still being spent the way it was intended to be spent.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
okay, gotcha.
this is just frankly Washington politics accelerating the implementation.
So the idea
possibilities.
was, one thing we heard was that it will have a rather weak chance of winning, given its.
The East-West
condition.
Gateway.
But you can reapply.
Right, which, yeah,
All they're doing, these, you look at it as two separate grants. One is the demonstration, there's the implementation. They're just going for the implementation now
They
ahead
have,
of schedule because they want to try to secure funding.
even though it'll
But
be a
it's
weaker
different.
application.
They're
Yeah.
going to a different pot too.
So
The
it doesn't change.
wait, I don't think it's different, I think they're using a different
Yes.
plan to
Yes.
apply for the same funding a year in advance. In the 2025 round instead of the 26 round.
So
But you thought they didn't have a plan. I mean.
They
so-
don't have a plan, which is why they're using.
No, the East-West Gateway doesn't.
Okay, how about if we get an update for you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
amen. That'd be good.
Wow.
But part of the issue is I was attending remotely and there was some tech issues. And it was
Oh,
difficult
gotcha.
to
Yeah,
hear everything being said.
All right, back to the agenda. Second, educational subcommittee update.
One of you guys want to take it?
Jason or Eric, whatever.
Or Eric.
You wanna go?
Just an alternate.
So we sent,
You have the same powers.
We've been busy.
Almost.
so we sent everyone our sort of guideline for how we'd work with them. And we met with them, and I think we felt that from based on that meeting, our general direction was correct. Does everyone have a copy of that email that we sent?
I think I sent it. Did I send an email? I think I sent
I
it.
didn't see one caught in the last meeting.
I don't think you sent it to everybody, but you,
I didn't do it.
Oops.
I got it.
Okay,
I got it. I thought you said.
I thought I did too. You know what? Then I messed up, guys. But did I not?
I think we can still get. the
Yeah, we can
general
catch you guys
overview.
up. Okay, so. I gotta go to that, cause I think maybe what I'm doing is I'm not using the correct, I have a preset
Well,
list, but
so we're talking about the potential education agenda.
Yep.
We thought that, I mean, if you want, I can run through this.
well, I think what it is we met with TrailNet for an initial
Yes.
meeting. We're talking about a 90-minute meeting.
Mhm.
We're talking about hosting it at the library. We'd like to do it before July 31st, but we don't have to do it before July 31st. They are gonna invoice us before July 31st. And then we have we kind of,
June 30th.
June 30th.
That's the end of the.
Okay, we thought it was
Yeah.
July 31st. So, okay, so maybe it's after June 30th.
We'll get the invoice with you there.
So we have topics. Yeah, we have an outline of topics and I trying to think of a way I could share it on there.
And so with this 90-minute meeting, for the community,
Well, I think we need to talk about that, because that was one of the questions. Who do you think is gonna show up? That's one of the questions they asked us. Who's gonna show up to this? And we had an internal conversation, the three of us about that, but I don't know. You know, who do we think is gonna
I
show up?
think we thought, broadly speaking, it would be the public. Now, whether anybody shows up or not is a different question, right? I don't think unless we're going to say we just want city staff to show up, for police to show up or some such thing. It
Well-
seemed to me it was the public.
Yeah, but they kind of went through a scenario of, do you think this is gonna be people who wanna plan and do infrastructure conversations? And we said no to that. It was, I think the overall concept was that it was, this is the kind of community we would like to be. Everyone gets out, walks, can go where they wanna go. This is the assets that we have today. Maybe some of the discussion around like how that could be improved, but more importantly,
Success
how,
stories.
yeah, success stories of what's gone in place. But then also, how do you use what we have today in a way that promotes walking, biking, and cars all being friendly to one another? And with specific scenarios.
What could it look like?
Yeah.
What we have now,
Right.
letting people know that. So it's kind of a broad, bring as much of this to people from I don't know anything, but I live here, to here's what you could get from here, using their experience to really bring that with a lot of life. Does that sound?
And some of it building on the research they've done, they just put out their safety analysis on. If you cross in the middle of the block, you're 3 times more likely to be hit by a car than if you're at the corner, things like that. And so some of it.
They had some templates to work from based on focus. Given what we had said, I think they were in their minds narrowing down to 2 or 3. They would sort of let us have them draw pieces out of that to be emphasized.
And they're supposed to come back. I believe the next step is they're coming back to us with,
Well, we said we were gonna have this meeting and get back to them, which we need to have some conversation, I think, to give them some further guidance. And I'm trying to join the meeting right now so I can share.
I might propose that we have something that is like informational. What is Complete Streets?
Yes.
What is the basis for it? Like what, why as we as a community, why would we want that? Why would we want to move in that direction? And then some examples.
You
of-
didn't see the document.
I'm getting
No.
ready to put it up there. I'm just,
I was trying to, I do have an email, but I can't get my
yeah,
hotspot to
Well,
open
my
it.
I can hand
hotspot
this
is
to one person at a
extremely
time.
So while you're doing that, let me just mention, this was gonna be in my update. We've got the draft of the comprehensive plan. The plan commission will review it in their next meeting, which will be, I think, the second week of June. Council should get it probably in July, if not July, August. And one of the pillars is Complete Streets. So in coordination, and council needs to adopt it. And part of our process for adopting, we would like people to come to a public hearing and tell us whether they like it or not. An educational event over the months around there would be really great in terms of explaining to people what it is. It is such a pillar of what we want to do. And it's going to be terminology that's not familiar to a lot of people.
Can I share documents on Zoom? I'm so,
You can go down to share at the
Green.
bottom.
Green box with an arrow.
just saying.
Yeah.
That's frustrating. I use Teams and
I think this is good timing too, because unfortunately, the new administration is anti-Complete Streets. So people may start to hear negative things about it, so it's a good opportunity to get in and explain what it is.
well, I do think that's where what they were talking about is good, because it kind of starts with, it's what do you want? What kind of neighborhood do you want to live, or city do you want to live in? These are the things that you want. This is what you have to do to get there. But I think what I like is it's also about personal behavior and how we can. That's what I took from it with the scenarios that they could go through. Is just
So, and part of what we said is, so I think what we need to do is go on a tactical level. We got 90 minutes. And we need to figure out, what does that 90-minute meeting consist of? So we know right out of the gates, we want to introduce TAC to the community. We want to explain what we've done, who we are. We want to go into how people act, how people get in touch with us. I think we want to go over just a few examples of some of the good work we've done. And then we want to I think at some point we want to give them the floor because we're paying. So they're the experts. So
But in the topics we've talked about were what are livable streets, which is like what you're describing, right? You give the document yourself.
I do, I have it on my computer, and
No,
I'm
it's
just trying to transmit it to people. I'm frustrated here with my internet connection. Is there an email address associated with that machine?
I don't know if that would work. Honestly,
My email's not really working either.
Yes, this hotspot. I have a connection, but I can't get any data.
Same.
Is there a way to log onto the city's Wi-Fi here? I see there's a.
yeah, right behind you.
Well, we're about a third of the way through that. Just go ahead and.
Yeah, so I think we do success stories. One of the things we said is we talk about livable streets, which is kind of like comprehensive streets. What are they? Explain to people what they are. I think we, and I want to preface back, if you talk about end results, why are we all doing this? I think the answer we all agreed on at the end was if we can get people who otherwise wouldn't have done it to hop on their bike or walk out their door and walk to a location instead of getting in their car, that is probably the targeted outcome we're going for.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about trying to help this community have a culture of this, which can mean get on your bike, it can mean honor a crosswalk. And that they felt that did have value. Just people thinking that's where I live brought people to behave better.
Yes, people just thinking that this is an option, this is what people do, maybe this is what I want to do. So I think that's our end target. We want to have people come to that meeting and then come out and say, boy, I'm going to try riding my bike to Freddy's instead of getting in my car and walking there. So we want to do a review though of what safe streets, of what comprehensive streets mean. We want them, what are livable streets, which we had some examples: stop signs, road width, bike lanes, intersections,
Crosswalks.
crosswalks, fair parking, etc.
You've introduced a new term. I've not heard the term livable streets. That's completely new to me. What are you talking about?
I think livable streets, you can complete streets, safe streets.
Well,
Multimodal
we better
transportation.
decide what that proper terminology
We
is.
probably should.
Well, I think complete streets is the proper term.
I agree,
I mean,
but
that's the one we should be using. That's one of the six
Complete
pillars
streets
in the
is-
comprehensive
And
plan.
I can probably.
That's what TrailNet,
Yes.
their whole work is about complete streets. So I think you're right. I think we need to be careful. When people talk about walkable city or
right,
comprehensive streets or whatever, I think we need to zero in on complete streets, because I think basically what that means is that our streets should be safe and usable for all. And it's pretty simple when it barrels down to that, and how do you get
I
there?
put myself in the position of
Share. I like share.
a citizen who might come to this meeting and hear this terminology and then go home and Google it.
Right.
Well, it does have meaning. So livable streets conventionally is vibrant, people-friendly spaces. Complete streets is about pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and transits, all
Well-
achieving their goals as in best compromise as possible.
Okay, I'm not prepared to debate this. I just think we need to come up with one term.
No,
and
that's
stick
fine,
with-
we
and
can do
stick with
that,
it.
but they both have
Yeah.
real meaning.
Right,
Complete
But
streets is probably.
And that's one of our goals. I mean,
Right.
that's why we read our goals every month.
right.
Our number 3 goal is continue educational programs to introduce complete streets concepts to residents, employers, and city employees.
So I guess.
So I think, are you asking, what should this meeting look like?
We need to have, we are supposed to have a follow-up with TrailNet where we give them some feedback and dial in exactly what we want their presentations to cover.
So 90 minutes seems like a long time if we're trying to get residents to come to a
They
meeting.
want to do an activity.
Some of that's an activity, yeah. And so like one of some examples of activities could be, for example, they could have somebody raise their hand, or they could break into workshops and have people say where they live and then say a destination they like to go to. And then you can workshop out, how do you get there when you're not in a car? What were some of the other activities?
They could focus on different audiences, some of which were like, if you're in a room full of street designers, here's a workshop. So we're not doing that, right? We're kind of picking off their menu a little bit closer to.
So Laura, I ask a question
Yes.
for you. If based on where the city is with the comprehensive plans, what do you think would be most helpful? So we're not working in a silo, that we're supporting the comprehensive plan around this pillar of complete streets. for all.
It sounds to me like they're gonna do the umbrella of what Complete Streets is, and whichever one of these kind of focused in on project are. So as long as that's part of it, I'm good.
Good with it.
If you wanna focus on, you know, other things under that umbrella, that's great. To me, the most important thing, and I appreciate you thinking about terminology, because we're gonna have to be perfectly consistent, or people are gonna think we're talking about different things.
Right.
As long as we get that introduced and begin to talk about that as an organization. I mean, we have as an organization, as a community, that would be most beneficial in my mind.
Yeah, so what is TAC and how it is an interface for people? Complete Streets, which we miswrote as livable, and I think we're all in agreement it's complete. And then it was going to talk about some of the things that we have. With the idea of people saying, oh, that's right. Oh, maybe we could expand it a little bit so that they didn't feel like they were starting from a zero spot. That we have a lot of value that we want to bring more of.
Okay.
And I thought you brought up some good safety points, or because I remember them asking about the calls, and I felt like that was one of the potential activities. Is that what you remember?
They asked me from just like what were the kind of complaints that the police department receives, and one of the things I talked about was bike safety, stopping for stop signs. We get a lot of complaints for that. General rules of the road, sort of stuff. Pedestrian rules. Those are the kind of the topics. I mean, it seems like we got a broad. You should have the screen share.
Yeah.
It says I'm sharing this.
It might take a minute to come up sometimes.
I don't know. It seems like they're looking for input, and it doesn't seem like everybody has the same idea of what this should look like.
I think
I would suggest that they prepare a couple what they want to present and have you all review it to make sure that it aligns with your vision.
We need to have a high level discussion of what we want this 90-minute session to be. And keep in mind, we reapplied for the funding. The way I envision this is we're doing it this year. This is gonna be a trial and error. We want it to be successful, but we're probably gonna get some things wrong this first one, but we have the funding again, so we will do another one.
You know, when you say wrong, I want to say, I doubt that it will be. The worst that happens is people are either bored or no one attends, but I think we're gonna get great results from what. is
But I
presented.
mean, I think you sort of outlined it. You want to have a little bit of a, this is what our commission is. This is how you can engage with our commission. And then we really want to spend the bulk of the time on them giving an overview of complete streets. And then there would be a Q&A time. And then if they want to do these activities, we could move into that.
Having heard, does anyone here feel that you do not want it to be 90 minutes?
I think you should aim for it being the presentation-ish part around an hour, and whether that includes Q&A or doesn't. And then moves in, so the people who say I'll give an hour, then can move on either during at Q&A or
we
before
could-
the activity.
Or we could say, TAC will be, from it, just say 4:30 to 5. We'll be available. TrailNet will be doing their complete streets work from 5 to 6, or whatever the timing is like that. So we could sort of break it up that way. People could really only wanted to come to the TrailNet part.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's.
It seems that
possible.
if I were to guess, their workshop is half an hour, right? I mean, it's not likely to be 20 minutes or 15
I think
or
that's what they.
10, right? So
Oh, okay.
if you're divided into 3 pieces, I would have thought TAC would be less than 30 minutes.
Yeah, can you accept my?
Would be less than 30 minutes. They would be more than 30, a little bit more than 30 for their talk. and 30 for their workshop.
I think the charge from TAC is that we want them to do a overview presentation. Come to the next meeting with the sample agenda and we can go walk through it on that.
Really, the thing if we don't like 90 minutes, the thing to easily drop is the workshop.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think they view that as potentially, that's engagement, which is a positive.
Is engagement.
You know,
I would just say, so if I could, so for the meeting with everyone talking, we have an agenda to tell them, and it's the first one is going to be what is TAC. Second part of the agenda is what is complete streets. Third part is what we have, and that's an hour. And then there's 30 minutes or whatever is left for activity to engage on all of those. And then, so what we need to say to TrailNet is, we just need to define what the activities are. So we agree on what people are going to be talking about. They have the what is complete streets. That's their DNA.
Right.
And they had pamphlets on stuff that they helped Webster Groves 8 years ago. So I think those items should be pretty clear. It's really that last activity.
Well, and I think they have a lot of experience doing this. And I think 90 minutes is what they would recommend. So I think if we're not doing 90, we're kind of flying against
Yeah,
their.
and what time of day are
we gotta decide. I think that's what time of day, how are we gonna, I mean, our decision that we should maybe be talking, maybe hopefully deciding that, or at least talking about what time. I think we've said the library. What are we gonna do for food and drink and how are we gonna pay for it?
I say no food and drink. I'm an anti-food and drink guy.
And
How are we gonna promote it?
how are we gonna promote it? How are we gonna get people there?
How did the Green Space promote their events?
I'll ask my wife if I get the dinner tonight.
So they have a regular channel now since they do those Echo Ed series pretty regularly, and it's a portion of some in-house calendaring and, Friday page. If we do this far enough in advance, we can put in the last week of the month for the city always has a full page ad in the Webster Kirkwood Times where we highlight different things. It can be part of that. Social media channels as well. However, we need to, there's a process that we will go through to get the information to our public relations person, and that needs to be done well in advance because her plate is full. So I just want to make sure we have that lead time. And then the other thing that I think this commission really should think about is inviting other boards and commissions, and we can do that through the city list, because I know Sustainability Commission people, Green Space Commission people, Parks and Rec people are going to be, business districts are all going to be really interested in this. So we can run that through the mailing list that we have through the city clerk's office to get that out to them as well.
When do we think we wanna have it?
So I'm gonna say as soon as possible, that allows for that promotion to occur.
I was talking more about
Oh,
not
time
the
of
date,
day.
but like time of day,
Day of the
weekend,
week.
weekday, night,
Right.
when.
Weekday, for sure. You don't get as good of attendance on a weekend.
During business hours or?
No,
No, outside of business hours.
So like 6:30 to 8.
The only comment that I would give you is we need to go off the library hours and you need to give me enough advance to try to reserve a room in the library. For whatever date that this committee decides.
Are we, just
You
out
may
of
have to
curiosity,
Do it the other way
But
around.
yeah, you may have to do
Find
that
out
way
what days they have
because they
available.
usually book pretty far in advance.
So my guess is I was thinking it was July 31st, June 30th. I don't
That's
know.
just to pay them.
Yeah, right. I don't think we're gonna have the event by June.
No
30th.
way.
I just don't see it. And that's okay. We shouldn't be stressing about that, so.
what about the rec center? Are
I was
are we
gonna say
having it at the
that rec
library
center.
for a reason? Yeah, because the rec center might have more availability. And that's where we have a lot of our public open houses and things like that.
I am open to either one. I just need a time and date so I can reserve it.
well, if it's the library, they close at 8, so that makes it 6:30. Probably 6 is better for the library.
Yeah, which is not.
But rec center,
Do we have any experience with this kind of thing about what time works best for attendance.
So it depends on what you're doing. So for example, a lot of the business related stuff is really early in the morning and that works well for them. We typically, when we're trying to do public engagements as a city council, have it weekday evenings. I've seen some Saturday weekend things and I agree they don't work very well. So, I mean, I think probably for this, a weekday evening is best bet.
I think we're a little bit of lucky because I think you get better engagement from families during the summer because there's a lot less sports and school night, homework and all that happening. So,
Do we want to say maybe we just check the 2 middle weeks of July for the 4th for Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday? To see, so that's 6 days and see what's available, and then that gives TrailNet a target.
Yeah.
And
maybe
either
they can
venue,
pre-bill us maybe. We
yeah,
can still invoice.
Do we
them.
think 6 to 7:30 would be better? Do we think 6:30 to 8?
I think 6 to 7:30 is good.
because Clark's gonna bring pizza.
I'm anti-food, remember?
We gotta look back at our budget. I think that we're gonna wind up chewing up almost all of our budget. I think we should have, I'll donate some pizza. I don't. So I think food's, people like to eat, especially 6:30 to, or 6 to 7:30, people.
Yeah.
Who's gonna take care of looking at dates?
Me.
Do you, now, is this gonna run for coordination organization, are we? I guess, I am concerned running it through the education subcommittee, because I'm really busy right now, I think, Jason, you said you're really busy, I mean, I know you're busy, we might need some more horsepower.
For what?
Coordination, I mean, that we're gonna have to, there's gonna be a lot of coordination, I think, on a tactical level, I think at least. We're gonna have to coordinate with city planning, right, to get notice out. We're gonna,
So I think if you all will get yourself
Get it
together, Eric and I can do the coordination. Am I right about that with the in-house stuff?
okay,
But we need a long enough timeline to make sure that there's capacity to do it.
So date, title, description, no images, no art. And you're good.
that's actually relatively easy.
In terms of inviting people, getting that out on our channels of, yes, I think that's fine.
So then I guess we try and find those dates and those weeks and go on. Here what we want.
Right, I would just, it's gonna have to be after the 4th and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Should say the week of the
Hmm.
7th, then the week of the 14th, or was it the 14th and 21st?
14th and 21st.
Okay, just curious.
4th is a Friday this year?
4th is Friday.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, I would go the
Yes,
14th
yes.
or 21st.
People might still be coming back from vacation.
yeah, you're right.
So,
I wasn't suggesting anything. I was just making sure that we've said that specifically.
I just assumed there were only 2 middle weeks and 7.
So
Yeah.
So that leaves, I mean, in terms of the tasks you're concerned
maybe I'm not as concerned.
the formation of the actual
The agenda.
presentation, I
That's what
think
we're
we
paying
need to
Trail-
just keep going. Well, yes,
Yeah.
I think we just keep going.
Yes, I agree.
And not
I would
get too much in it.
think that TrailNet should supply some sort of like flyer. For what their presentation is gonna look like. I can give that to you or work with to do things on the social side. Again, I just need that information to give to her and I'll zero in a date. And we can even put out a Facebook event, to try to gauge attendance to see who would be interested. in
So we want
going.
like an advertising cut sheet from TrailNet flyer.
Something that gives an
They'll have it.
idea of what it's gonna.
Yeah, event flyer.
They nearly showed them to us when we were
Right.
with them. They just have to.
Yeah,
Cut and paste.
We're paying them, I don't think we should have to create the flyer, I think they should.
so we might get-
Remember, we're barely paying them. They were
But
paying them
remember,
for-
they have the flyer.
They already have it, yes. Paying them like 80% of what they should.
Who here wants to?
They should understand that this could lead into more.
They do, yeah, I think they do. Yeah, I mean, this could be a recurring thing and we'll learn from this event and the next one, I guarantee will be better.
I would suggest someone on the committee just reach out and say, hey, can you provide us with a flyer?
Yeah.
And then you send that. to
Well,
me.
I mean, we're gonna, yeah, we can do that right out of the gates. I'll send that tonight or tomorrow, but we'll need to set up a second meeting with them. Who here wants to talk about TAC at that meeting?
I can.
Yeah.
We should talk for the budget.
Yeah,
I can do that.
Just to stir the pot a little more. I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of some kind of workshop at the end.
Why?
If they want to do that, if that's what they're used to doing, and they want to do that as a final activity and allow people to leave if they want to, I'm okay with that. But in general, what you're trying to do is teach them something they don't know. They don't know what.
No,
complete
here's the
streets is.
thing.
So how can you have, let me finish. So how can you have a knowledgeable workshop or involvement when they haven't even heard the word yet?
Because
They're not educating about the
Right.
academic concept of complete streets.
They're not.
No,
No, but they're here to turn people on just to the basic concept that, hey, you can get on your bike and ride to Olive and Oak for dinner instead of getting in your car and driving there. And here's how you get there.
so about them, they had pre-laid out like 6 or 8 different potential discussions targeted to different education levels and ages. They almost had engagement statistics based on knowing exactly what to say and which ones got that.
So are they selling what we want or are they selling what they want?
What we want, because we get to choose.
We want the same
veto
thing.
Anything that they would say on that.
They're giving us a choice of what we want more people using multimodal transportation.
Okay,
That's what we want.
I'm on board with that.
And we're educating people about that that's even an option and how that's an option and how to do that better.
Okay, all right.
Chris, I don't think the workshop is to sit down and come up with a plan.
No.
The workshop is to
It's for
actually,
engagement. Yeah.
to let people hands-on understand what
And
it
it's gonna be
is.
pretty, it's not gonna be complex.
It's
Okay.
people sitting around looking at a map going
Yeah.
like, oh, there's a,
And we won't
you
have,
know, a.
There's a
crossroads.
pedestrian bridge on
Someone
the
looks at me.
before.
Yes.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's gonna
Okay.
be, yeah.
You made me feel better, so
all right. Now we're gonna move on. We got a few other things, but do we know our next step? You're gonna check dates. And if you have to slip into later July or even into the beginning of August, that's okay. I mean, that'll just give us more time.
Okay, and then education subcommittee, we will get together separately and keep the ball rolling with.
And get the flyer
Yeah, get
together.
the flyer and keep the ball rolling. with
And
that.
I think all of us should be sending that out to our networks too.
And I wanna add too, I would expect that, I mean,
We will all,
everyone here should plan on attending unless, you got a conflict, but it would be nice to have attendance and representation from our committee there, because it's all about, it's our thing.
So if you see the email that we sent with this Word document, it gives the tone of what we're trying to say.
I still wanna see it on the screen.
well, I want to see it.
Clark, you had a movement, what's
Dinner, you're not gonna be here
till 9:00.
As they work this through, we're gonna bring back more and more complete information before the end.
Okay,
You know,
so if you will send that information out. so
Yes.
We get to see it, and then we will feed back to you.
Yeah.
Okay, we will do that.
yeah, you're not
All right.
out of it at all, you know, we're bringing.
I think this is gonna be a cool event. I'm getting excited. I
Yeah.
think it is. I think it's
Yeah.
gonna be.
And Chris, do you mind if I had you on the agenda next to sort of give a little bit of a crosswalk? You've been sending out some,
Yeah.
is there anything you want to relate or?
Not really, although I would really like to get some time with Eric and Carrie to confirm some of the things that I'm hearing. So we can do that another time or by email or whatever you like.
Okay,
Okay,
good. Then we'll move to new business. Assistant Chief, you had a few items on here. Elm Place parking request.
Yeah, she had asked because she said that the trucks and things park on Elm Place. To.
Does everyone know where Elm Place is?
It's-
So
it's like a,
it's between Cedar and Swan on South Elm. It's a, one block with a cul-de-sac at the end.
Yeah, I know where it is now.
And I think the request was to have resident only
Permanent
parking.
parking.
How wide is the street? Do we have a stop for a parking policy? No parking policy yet?
So. I would suggest she. Complete a petition and talk with the neighbors and.
What is the issue again?
complaining that, service vehicles use their area to park because there's no parking lot.
Which is, I was gonna say it's about crazy, like, why would you ever wanna park in there? Because you can only service like 3 or 4 houses from there, but. There
Like,
is,
So what's an
plumbers and
example of a
stuff like
service
that.
person?
Oh.
Okay,
Plumber,
okay.
yard,
So they,
People.
that's as close as they can park to some.
I mean, most of the
somebody's
houses on Elm have driveways, so I don't know why they use the driveways.
Is there,
If they're working.
is it no parking on Elm?
No, you can park on Elm.
Right.
That's what,
So what's the problem?
No one wants to park on. Elm.
Yeah,
yeah,
That's the problem.
base speeds and they're probably clipped. That's a whole other thing.
So,
So they would like, basically not, they want a restriction on non-resident parking.
So Eric, I think you need to get back to her and say, here's our process.
I did.
That you need to get 50% of your neighbors to sign.
Wait, I mean, what about street width? Is that is that not an official part of our process yet? Is that still in limbo? But our no parking policy basically says if your street isn't wide enough, then you can restrict parking.
It is a narrow, it does look kind of narrow.
But their request was to make it resident only.
Well, that first step is, yeah, that, and then they can apply for the resident only.
well, it'll never be resident only though, right? None of our policy allowed resident only in all cases,
They had to apply for that, yeah.
but it was partial.
But it starts with a parking prohibition, basically. And if you can get prohibited parking, then the remaining, do you want the remaining parking to be resident only was like step B. I finally found it on.
So width of the street will determine if it's double.
Carrie, if
single.
it's shared, not resident only, shared.
Right.
Right, shared.
So-
Okay, yeah, shared.
You call it and say, hey, there's a service vehicle or a non-resident been parking from my house all day. I can't park. I got a problem. Your response is, there's nothing I can do about
It's
it.
public parking. Like,
We've
it's
actually
the
had
street.
somebody come to our house before because we parked one car on the street. So eventually, I think the police would come. They came and knocked on the door and they were like, somebody's complaining that this car's been here for a month. And I was like, well, yeah, but it moves.
That's the important part.
Yeah. And actually, the officer was extremely nice. He's like, I looked it up. It belongs to you guys. I said, yeah, it gets driven. It's just in their way today, but yeah.
Well, we have that actually on the parking lot is our parking
I will,
policy.
I will check with the city manager. We have not gotten it back to council. So I don't know what the schedule for that is. I am fairly as it was not a fully adopted policy, but the discussion wasn't about wasn't about new requests. It was about how do you go back and do the retroactive.
Implementation.
Yeah, so I mean,
I've forwarded the request. That's all I can tell you.
is there an issue with people leaving the area because of the service trucks parked there, or is it just they don't like service?
I think it has to do with the issues parking in front of their house. Like they want to be able to park their vehicles in front of their house.
And so if we do something about that, do we create?
Yes.
We have a
bigger
policy.
issue?
We just leave it at that. We're done.
Yeah, I mean, if the street is too narrow, then you have to say there's no parking on this side.
But that's not an ordinance yet.
That won't solve their problem.
Our parking policy is not an ordinance yet.
It's
I know what you're saying.
however, you all still are charged with making a recommendation about what to
Right.
do. That didn't change.
yeah.
I think the reason you have to do that is if it's too narrow and somebody parks too close on both sides of that street, then you can't get an ambulance or anything up that street. That's problem number one. So the way you solve that is you say parking only on one side.
But you go to our policy.
You go to policy.
But I don't
Now,
think there's a complaint about.
no, I know what you're saying.
Any traffic.
Then I think you say, okay, this is all we can do. We can't restrict that someone from parking on that street with their pickup truck. We can't restrict that.
End of story.
End of story.
But we can say you you can follow the process to apply
Yes.
for shared park.
Well, maybe that's our
Correct.
response, is to give them,
That was my thinking.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we should do. I think we
Here's a
should,
petition, fill out your petition, and see if the neighbors even support what you're asking for. If they don't, it's a dead issue.
right,
And if they do, then we can bring that position and you guys can discuss it and make a recommendation.
Yep.
Which ultimately can be recommended to the council if you want to do shared parking or not. And then the council can decide whether or not they want to follow with that, or the city manager can forward it. So that's kind of how I thought these kind of things would work in the future.
by
Yeah,
the way,
no.
I measure an approximate distance of 17 feet. What is our 17.6? What is
it's
it?
18.
Well, I bet you it's 18, because I'm just doing rough calculation.
Oh, I have, yeah.
18,
I-
20.
What do you?
Well, here.
It's 21.
Yeah,
But
yours,
you-
I just did a real quick measurement.
Yeah, I think it's about 21, which falls them into the place where they can have no parking on one side of the street.
But we made rules we like. Let's just leave it alone. I don't even wanna know
Exactly.
how about the street is.
Well, we need to know because that's part of the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're not there
it's
yet.
based on street width.
We're not there yet.
But
We're gonna-
but the commission and a new recommendation, there's nothing that says you all can't use that in your decision-making process.
Exactly, and I
Yeah.
think we should, because
Right.
it's consistency, right?
Right.
Correct. And I like that. I like the consistent approach. Hey, you guys have a
That's very
guideline and a purpose that you want to use. I'm all in favor of that. And then, that person can say, hey,
So would it be helpful, do we need a document that you can always send to people? That
I mean, I
outlines,
have that outline, but I don't necessarily.
but I mean, a shorter one that says to them, here's how you get yours in front of the traffic advisory commission.
I explain it to every person that I explain what TAC is. I explain the process. I explain.
I'm just wondering if there's a document that would help you in that you can just forward as opposed
Unfortunately, Clark, I think you're trying to make me create another document.
to. I'm saying you're trying to make your document.
You say you're good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we basically have one.
I kind of have the cut and paste that I use. that-
No, if you have that.
Email.
Okay.
I know the mayor sees them because she.
I do, and yes, he's got a cut and paste to use as well.
Okay, then that's good. Let's move on to number 2 was the parking spot in front of Old Orchard McDonald's.
So I pulled it up for you so you can see what the issue is, and the complaint is folks park along here,
Mm,
making it difficult to pull out and pull into traffic. And so now I'll let you, so now I did a field study on this. And he came up with some information. I asked him, what is the existing no parking there? And hopefully I'm getting this right. South of Orchard between Big Bend and Garden, no parking from 3 AM to 9 AM, Monday through Friday. And,
Is- I don't see that sign set.
no, there is no signage here. It's on this side of the street.
Okay.
It's no parking, but I think it applies to both streets, or am I incorrect on this?
Yes.
It applies to both
plus
sides.
northbound and southbound.
You know what? There is a sign right
How would
before
anyone know
the, what
There's
is
no
that?
sign.
Yeah,
After the barbecue place, but before the law firm.
Here, I'm
Lawson
gonna
Rose
click the
City.
little guy here. I'll do, you'll taught me how to do the little guy.
Oh, there you go.
There's a sign 1 block, that.
So the sign sits here. Oh,
no,
Oh.
fizzle sticks.
You said between 3 AM and 9 AM?
Yes.
Yeah, 3 AM.
And yeah,
And then 12 PM to 8 PM on Thursdays, it says.
No.
oh, because we used to have a farmer's market.
Yeah.
There is,
So that- like-
there is a sign behind, on the side of the street that you're on right now, behind your guy, there's a sign there as well.
We spin all the way around.
It's right here, but I can't get any closer. to it.
No, on he needs on this. side.
Yes, if you keep going down that
We
road,
Apply it to both sides of the street, the sign wall.
if you keep going down, there's a sign past that driveway.
Can we all just accept?
Yeah,
this?
yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So I think if you wanna stop people parking there, you gotta put another sign right
I
there.
agree.
We've talked about that. We've talked about coloring the curbs and then putting signage along
Yeah.
here. And there's.
The thing with that is, you gotta be a jerk to park there, cause that's clearly not a place you should be parking.
It's not like it's students.
Yeah,
So it's people that are using McDonald's and then, Sanan, what's the ordinance or the MUTC rule on?
MUTCD, the manual on uniform traffic control devices, it doesn't allow you to have parking in, when the lanes are allocated this way. And so there is no, I mean, if a car obstruct this, through lane, there's no, safe usage of that possible, unless you cross over. And, you know, impediment is, of course, you know, if this traffic is stacked, then, you know, you block traffic.
So the yellow
So-
curb and the sign, sounds like.
And it's right here, yeah, so that's what we would like to do, eliminate all this parking up to here. So that there's no parking.
Talking about no parking ever, right? Or are you just talking about during the restricted? Right, no parking ever.
Now, would that require a separate ordinance?
Just gonna say.
Is that gonna be?
Need to have it added to the schedule of parking.
But if it falls in the uniform code,
Yeah.
why do you need a?
You need an ordinance to make it enforceable.
I think, right.
So
Make
we
it
can only,
enforceable for
they
us.
can only write tickets for, or like city ordinances. So you can't write a ticket for an
Is it
MUTC.
enforceable if you don't have a sign up there, but there is an ordinance?
It has to be marked usually.
I think it
for
has to be,
that
yeah.
Well, so because right now, your other signs do not, your other signs are only no parking during the restricted hours.
Right, yeah, that's a bit,
Yeah.
yeah, so they'll need an
On
ordinance.
this side of the street, yeah.
Yeah,
But not on this one. The reason, if you have your cars parked along here, this makes this a very treacherous situation.
But you said to enforce it, you have to be, it has to be noticed. And it's not noticed.
So we'll have those two signs, no parking between.
So I think we're all
So
I think we all believe, right?
do we need a vote?
I don't know. While you're in there with new ordinances, you might pull the Thursday one out, since we don't have a Thursday.
Yeah.
Since we don't have a Thursday
Eric,
farmer's
is that
market anymore.
something
Actually, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that we vote on and make the recommendation to the city manager, or is that something that you?
I would just say that you all recommend that we apply this, no parking restriction to this area.
Okay, so-
And I would have to craft an ordinance, and so you don't need a vote, that's the question.
No,
I don't know, Mayor, do we need a vote?
Why don't we just make a motion to recommend? that we
Yeah.
put a no
Yeah.
parking sign?
I second that motion.
You can just do a voice vote, right?
Yeah.
All in favor?
No.
My only concern, not to extend things, is that the business owners might not like losing these perceived parking spots,
We
particularly,
shouldn't have them in the first place.
Yeah, they shouldn't have.
You should be walking there.
so.
And I don't think you have to do an ordinance. I feel like that's
Well put.
Public Works or somebody else.
Yeah,
Should be right now. Yeah.
All right, let's move on so we can get some dinner for Jason.
Well, I hear you there.
I'm gonna wait till June on this one. I read our membership ordinance for our Traffic Advisory Commission.
Sure.
And there's a part in here about the chair serves for 1 year and the vice chair. That's taken out now. I looked online today. It's gone. Somebody rewrote it. That's not even.
When you
part
find
of
a
it.
good
It's
one,
not-
you keep
it's
it.
not- Gone, it's part of our policies now for boards and commissions, so it's still in
So-
effect, so.
So what I'm recommending is in July that we vote on a new chair. I think it's a good idea for this commission and for all to rotate that
Oh,
position
sure.
for a year
Oh, my gosh. Really?
in this, in
Time
the
flies when you're having fun.
summer.
Does it have to change?
It doesn't have to change. I think it's a good policy to have the vice chair move into the chair position and then we do vice chair, just to rotate, but it shouldn't be mandatory. So, I think just thinking about that, if anybody strongly wants to be chair, let me know and we can talk about that in the summer.
Would you be opposed to another?
I would not be opposed to it, but I would probably, if somebody else wanted to be chair, I think that's a good policy. Just because we're not in here for
My argument would be, we have,
consistency.
well, and we have some newer members and we've got a lot going on. And you're doing a good job.
Okay.
So,
Okay, we'll add this to our agenda.
Okay.
If anyone strongly says, I really want to be chair, let me know.
everybody's-
With that, I'm gonna move to the city updates.
Yeah, I already mentioned the comp plan, so that's moving along, and I think that's great news. We are deep in budget, as you all know. We did discuss, I think I came back in at the end of this, we did discuss work plans and budgets, and yours all seems good in the council discussion. So once the budget is finalized, I'll get a letter that I write to you all and myself, I guess, as liaison. Just to reinforce a few things that came up in the discussion, but generally everything was very positive. You will note a couple things about the budget. One, you'll note that we are projecting a deficit for this year. While I'm always concerned about a deficit, I'm not overly concerned right now. Part of that is we are projecting zero growth in sales tax because we just don't know what the economy is going to do. And that has not turned out to be necessarily the case in past performance, but it's just really hard to figure out how to plan. One of the things also that came out of the budget discussion, and I never like it when my face is on the front page of the Webster Kirkwood Times, but it was there with the discussion. We had a discussion about potential revenue sources. And
Tax
so just, yeah, exactly.
I read it.
Yeah.
Make
Right
our
next to my
own.
face.
Just huge tax hike.
Um,
That's what I
Just so
read.
you all know, this is the beginning of a discussion. I mean, the trends are that revenue is not keeping pace with continued expense growth, especially given that we're a employee-based organization. So we're gonna have to figure out a solution, but no one's made any decisions. So if any of you have any ideas about that or expertise that you want to share with me, I would love that.
How is that discussion gonna unfold?
So we had an introduction this last council meeting with a few options that are available to us. Whether property tax increase, economic
say, I got a
development,
nice-
sales tax. You got a nice little flyer?
It was warning me that I was to expect a greater than 15% increase in property taxes, so.
That's
That-
separate.
I don't,
That was
Yeah,
from the county assessor.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that is, because keep in mind, we are
Yeah,
limited
that's-
into what we can actually collect. Your property value goes up 15%, we collect 5% increased taxes or the CPI, yeah, so. It's not, that'll be different, economic development sales tax, a citywide transportation development district. And then the other was a fire, we don't have the full fire sales tax. We got to talk a lot about this. We have to figure out what it might do to our economy. We have to figure out what it might do for homeowners, especially in uncertain times for homeowners as well. So there was a little bit about the article that seemed to suggest we've decided and we're going to send a bunch of stuff to you for approval. That has not been decided yet. We're still in pretty early stages, and I would just suggest to keep informed and, talk to us if you have ideas.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, did you say we have a TDD or that's on
We
the
do
table?
not. That's on the table.
Okay, thank you.
Are you guys forced, because you have a projected deficit, does that force any action? Are there any things in the bylaws or in the force action on your part because of that? Yes.
We are forced to use some of our rainy day fund reserves in order to balance. We can't borrow to
And
make
does
up that
that-
difference.
That reserve have a limit in the charter?
It does not. The current policy for our reserve is that we keep a reserve of 50% of our annual general fund. That would be roughly amount to $11 million. We're right now at 75% roughly we have plenty in reserves. So that's not the issue.
Right.
And to be honest, that's part of the discussion we have to have. How do you go to taxpayers and ask for more general fund revenue when you're holding a reserve that's more than you need to hold? And that's really something I think we need to sort out. But I thought the article presented this as being a lot further down the track than it actually is.
Which is more complicated, parking spaces in front of McDonald's or deficit, but
I can tell you that they're equally cared about in this community.
Good answer.
Parking and budgets, absolutely the same
Good answer.
level of interest.
So this is kind of accessible, but what are our taxes in comparison to neighboring communities?
So our sales taxes, there's actually, if you went to the city council meeting, if you're really interested, I can send it to you. There's a table of ours relative to our neighbors. We are either lower than or equal to all of our neighbors in our straight base sales tax. And that doesn't count any sort of TDD or whatever, the transportation development taxes or any other kind of add-on taxes. So Rock Hill, their base looks pretty close to ours, but there are places in Rock Hill where you pay a whole bunch more, like Aldi, you pay a whole bunch more in sales tax. So our sales tax, I feel really pretty good about. Our property tax rate is pretty good in comparison as well. And one of the things we're having a hard time communicating, and then we're not having a hard time communicating, people tend to forget. Every dollar you pay in property tax, the city gets 9 cents. And so we run city services on less of a property tax than, say, a fire district in West County in its entirety gets a higher property tax than we run all your city services on. So communicating with people when they say their property tax is really high, it's not really the city. We're a pretty small part of that. It's accumulation of a lot of things. And mostly, frankly, it's the Webster Groves School District and Special School District that take up the bulk of your property tax.
70%.
I guess the word on the street I had heard last, this person, was that Webster has higher taxes than other places. I guess I thought it was for school. This is just some person's impression. I have no fact.
So, and I think that depends on how, so we had some people a few years ago going around town saying that our city property tax rate was higher. And they were comparing us to, say, De Pere, which has a fire district. So they were comparing their city tax to our city, not taking into account that fire district. And when you add the fire district, they end up with a much higher property tax than we do. So you can make that argument, but really you're saying you're comparing apples to apples and you're comparing apples to oranges. So
And we're a pool city, right?
we are a pool city.
So I don't think a lot of people understand that.
Yeah,
Like
that's definitely true.
Could you explain what a pool city is?
Madam Mayor do it.
So in St. Louis County, you have a choice of being a point of sale or a pool city. If you're a point of sale, when a sales tax is collected, you as the city keep all of the sales tax. If you're a pool city, you keep a portion of it, but most of the sales tax you collect goes into the pool and it's then distributed across all the pool cities in St. Louis County. So part of the reason for that is, we don't have big box
De Pere,
stores. We
point
don't,
of
the
sale.
Chesterfield Valley. Chesterfield Valley is a pool city.
It's a pool city.
And we're, so when somebody from here happens to spend their money out there, we still have some benefit of that sales tax.
Right.
They
So
don't
when-
have to blow up the whole system.
They don't-
So,
yeah.
they're not happy.
Because
where
at one
they-
time they were like us,
Yeah.
they didn't have the valley.
Yeah.
And they needed
Right.
to share taxes
There are
as
winners
well.
and losers. The winners hate it and the losers like it.
I wouldn't say winners and losers really, because,
Pool city's good for us.
It's
No,
very good.
Overall community too.
Yeah,
Everyone's stealing.
I think Chesterfield seems to be really the one that complains the most about this. And this is not a TAC issue. So if you wanted to end the meeting and anyone wanted to talk pool sales tax with me, we can do that too. I'm happy to stay and do that, but
No, I think
there's some
that's a
people who have
good,
already had a very long day here. And so maybe we
I'm gonna, take Laura up on that if anyone wants to continue this. I'm sure she has a few minutes. Just to recap, and I will send out a recap email, but we're gonna check out if we can Grant Road, and I'll send that address of that cul-de-sac and that street. The sidewalk policy, either Eric is gonna send or Rob already did.
I sent the sidewalk
Right.
policy.
The sidewalk policy, so review that before our next meeting, just so we're aware of what's in there. Regarding the SS4A, you're gonna see if somebody can come give us an update next month, is
yes,
that right,
yes, I am.
Mayor? And then with regard to our educational update, the subcommittee is gonna work with TrailNet to get that flyer together, and we'll promote that, and Assistant Chief is gonna check on the dates for us in the 2 locations. And then you're also gonna get back to Elm Place to tell them the process to get through to us, and then you're gonna make the recommendation for an ordinance change at Old Orchard McDonald's.
So now it's gonna take care of ordinance.
Excellent.
So
So with that, wait, before we do our next meeting is June 16th. And is there anything else that we want to talk about before we adjourn, and then we could have sidebars?
So the person who spoke about Swan and Elm. This is a very old thing. Are we going to consider that in any form?
May I overstep my bounds, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Make a recommendation right out of the gate. We talked for quite a while, and the fundamental thing she wants, I told her isn't gonna happen, and that's removal of the stop. However, I think that it's fair to characterize the conversation as she's looking forward to seeing what happens with the demonstration grants. And so I think that's fine. It's not an issue for you all at the time, at this moment.
Fortunately, none of those grants are gonna stop the traffic.
And that was a lot of our conversation, is that we can't dictate the flow of traffic.
But we can maybe do things to slow.
Okay.
Exactly.
I want
Yeah.
to say this is an outstanding talking point for complete streets. Because it's the needs of everyone, the people that drive it, the people that walk it, the people that bike it. For it to be safe and still flow traffic and still serve businesses and homes. I mean, I'm not saying the answer is easy, but it is a very interesting.
I would just
Someone
like
who
to
doesn't
point
know
out,
the history-
I would just like to point out, there's been 4 accidents on Elm in the last 5 years in that location.
That's small.
Yes.
Given the volume of traffic.
So maybe next meeting when we dig into this, I have some more questions I want to ask tonight. I have an idea of the history, but
But again, I think it's important, data is important, but also there's probably not been any accidents on Grant where people are petrified running across the street. And that doesn't mean that we don't look at that still of an area that there hasn't been a lot of traffic accident
I
data.
take your point. I'm just giving data, and it's valid point that we should validate complaints. but-
And Rob, we talked about it for, as she said, we
No.
talked about it for.
I don't want to talk about Elm and Swan, and I do not want to put a stop sign in there. But I do appreciate that for complete streets, it is a credible case,
Absolutely.
right?
I think there's a lot of school kids that cross, there's traffic possibilities are
I'm
common.
working on a grant to get permanent speed signs that tell you the speed for both south and northbound.
people call out the post advisory speed signs like she mentioned you did.
I mean, they can.
They're in their yard. It's like, it's a.
With that, I'm gonna adjourn this.
Yeah,
meeting.
thank you. Do that.
But we can't talk about it outside of the meeting, right?
That's right.
Parking lot.
We can talk all we want, Tracy.
Not if you have a quorum.
Not if you have a quorum.
Not if you have a quorum, that's it.
So let me tell you a story.
Yeah, just.
So.
I move